F5 big IP advanced WAF or web application firewall. So let's first understand what is WAF, and then we would understand advanced WAF, because advanced WAF means yes, there are a lot of new features if we compare with F5 big IP ASM or F5 big IP WAF, because in advanced WAF there is like guided configuration, open web application security, project or OWASP, compliance dashboard, protection from credential stuffing, advanced bot mitigation, and there are too many new features, right? But obviously advanced WAF has all features of F5 big IP ASM, application security manager. And as you know, like F5 networks is like the name of vendor, and big IP is the system onto which we provision different software components or software blades, like local traffic manager, DNS domain name system or F5 big IP DNS, access policy manager, application security manager, right? If licensed, then they all can be provisioned on same hardware or virtual appliance. So big IP is the name of system, F5 is vendor name, company name, and LTM, DNS, APM, ASM, and there are many more like software components. There are different software components or software blades, right? If we want to run F5 big IP ASM in a standalone, yes, that is also possible. We can provision only ASM or advanced WAF on like big IP virtual or hardware platform, right? So first thing first, let's understand what is WAF, packet flow, and then I'll come to this point like advanced WAF, right? So WAF means like application firewall or application security manager, and WAF protects applications and mainly web applications or web applications, whereas next generation firewalls like Palo Alto, Checkpoint, FortiGate, Cisco FTDs, they protect networks. Even though like next generation firewalls, they operate up to layer 7 of OSI model, right? Because they perform deep packet inspection, content scanning, right? And a lot of like threat prevention mechanism like IPS, IDS, vulnerability protection, anti-spyware, anti-malware, and so many like threat prevention features. Still, next generation firewalls cannot protect web applications from different attacks. I mean like layer 7 attacks mainly, okay? Because next generation firewalls are not purposefully built to protect applications. They are mainly to protect networks, not applications, right? So that's the reason, like even though if we have next generation firewall in our network, still we need to have F5 big IP ASM or maybe a 40 OF WAF, Radware. There are too many vendors, right? Of course, like we are going to talk about F5 big IP ASM, but you understand like there are a lot of products available in the market. There are too many vendors providing similar like solution, protecting web applications from different layer 7 attacks, because they are purposefully built for the same purpose, but mainly to protect applications, not to protect networks, right? So it's not about like inspecting data up to layer 3 or layer 4, because we are not comparing F5 WAF with legacy or traditional firewalls, because legacy or traditional firewalls means only up to layer 4SI model, inspecting data found in layer 3 header and layer 4 header only, right? But we are comparing F5 big IP, ASM or any other WAF with next generation firewall, and next generation firewall we understand like operates up to layer 7, threat prevention or protection mechanism, IPS IDS built in there in the firewall itself, and even like a code injection attack and cross-site scripting attack. Yes, next generation firewalls can protect from those attacks, right? But not all web attacks, in fact, because if we look at WAF top 10 web application security project top 10, so all attacks, in fact, cannot be prevented or protected from next generation firewall, right? So that's the reason why do why do we implement WAF also? So basic screening, or maybe just controlling traffic at network, transport layer, maybe even up to layer 7, yes, done with the next generation firewall. And then for advanced threat protection, protecting like web application from WAF top 10 attacks or web application security project top 10 attacks, yes, there is web application firewall deployed here. Let me quickly talk about packet flow first, and a high level overview, and then I'll show you like configuration part also of F5 big IPSM. So if you look at the diagram, then internet client machine opens, browser types website name like http://ntinfovision.com. so what happens first, domain name like ntinfovision.com will get resolved to IP address, right? And for that, DNS server is required, either local DNS server, enterprise DNS server, Google managed DNS server, ISP DNS server, right? Whichever DNS you are pointing, a client machine is pointing to. So first DNS query goes to DNS server that can I have IP address of ntinfovision.com. If DNS server has record or maybe information in the cache table, or at somehow like if domain name successfully resolved to IP address, then IP address is returned in DNS reply message. And once client machine gets IP address of the website or domain like ntinfovision.com, and if there is proper routing, and obviously that would be taken care by the service provider, whoever has given or provided public IP address. So let us assume there is no issue with the routing. So what happens then next, client machines then send a request packet to the same IP, that is 122.176.108.99 public IP address, right? And firewall means like here destination NAT is configured to translate public IP address 122.176.108.99 to a virtual IP address, right? And virtual IP address is configured here like on F5 big IP system. So basically what we do on F5 big IP system, we create a virtual server with the virtual IP address, right, as a destination IP address. And virtual server, why virtual server? Because F5 big IP system is doing some kind of emulation, in fact, pretending itself as a web server, in fact, right? So letting everybody know like I'm the web server, you can talk to me and I have this IP address, right? So and that's the reason like why we use the term virtual IP address, VIP. So what happens here, if there is proper destination NAT policy configured on the firewall, and also not only the destination NAT policy and security policy also. Security policy. So if destination NAT and security policy, both policies are in place, then next generation firewall will do the translation and then request packet is forwarded towards F5 big IP system, right? And F5 big IP system, now F5 big IP system is configured with the virtual IP, and now virtual IP can be a private IP, right? In this lab topology, I'll be using 192.168.1.111 as the virtual IP address, right? 192.168.1.111. So what happened then? Request is forwarded to F5 big IP system, and now here, even if like there is no LTM software plate provision onto this F5 big IP system, still basic functionality or functionalities of F5 big IP LTM or ADC, application delivery controller, would be there, like in the ASM itself, right? So even if there is no dedicated LTM software plate, no problem, basic features of LTM would be there, right? Basic functionality. And even in advanced WAF, a lot of like features of local traffic manager or LTM is integrated, right? And that's one difference. In fact, if I compare with the ASM or just WAF, right? So in ASM or WAF, in fact, very limited features of LTM over there, like hardly some, like a couple of load balancing methods, even persistence and some advanced profiles were not there, no advanced health monitoring, right? Even number of members in a pool restricted to 3 only. So at that time, even like provisioning LTM along with ASM, yes, very much like required, right? But nowadays, if you do not want to like take license of LTM, you want to have only ASM with basic load balancing feature, yes, you would have that, because what F5 has done now, F5 has added a lot of LTM features in ASM itself, right? So coming back to this packet flow, even if you do not have LTM, but still there is internal LTM and a lot of features. And let me quickly show you. If I have here, let me log in here. I'll show you basic features of LTM. So if I just open resource provisioning page, right? So you can see here ASM and FPS both, right? License and provision. But what about LTM? No, none. LTM has not provision, even though it is licensed but not provision. So using like ASM and FPS or fraud protection services software plate here. But if I show you like this virtual server option, right, even in pool, like there's one pool here, and you'll find like a lot of load balancing methods here, and see here like load balancing method, even a pool can have more than 3 members now, right? We can create advanced profiles like persistence, cookie persistence, source persistence, a lot of like advanced health monitoring profiles, yes, can be created and attached with the pool member or node, right? These are some enhancements in advanced WAF. So if we compare advanced WAF with ASM, then yes, like even LTM or ADC features were very limited there, right? So coming back to this, so far we have discussed like domain name resolved to IP address, client sends request to next generation firewall. Next generation firewall has destination NAT policy and also security policy. So client request now is directed to F5 big IP system, right? And now what happens here on F5 big IP system, fronted object or front end object is virtual server, right? So client requests will match virtual server object, right? Virtual server object is created where? On a 5 big IP system. So client request matches virtual server, means with the virtual IP and port. Virtual IP is front end IP, right? In this lab diagram, I'm using IP address from the same range, that is 1.111, right? So client request matches virtual server object with the virtual IP and port address. Virtual IP is of course like 192.168.1.111 and port number of 80 or 443. Then what happens when we create ASM policy or WAF policy, right? And as I mentioned in the beginning, WAF or ASM is like purposefully built to protect web applications, right? So your next generation firewall cannot protect applications from different layer 7 attacks, right? Up to certain extent, yes, like cross-site scripting or code injection attack, next generation firewall can provide protection, but WAF has like too many advanced features, and I'll show you like what all features I'm talking about here, right? So in the beginning itself, I'm not going to like use all the like heavy terms here, like parameter and like HTTP methods and geolocation based and IP reputation based, bot mitigation, layer 7 DDoS attack, web scraping, right? Too many things in fact, right? I'll explain like those features, so no worries. So what happens here, like if ASM policy is there, so when we create ASM policy, automatically LTM policy is created. LTM policy is created, and if we do not modify, we do not customize, then what we see there in the LTM policy, any request coming from internet site, right, should be forwarded to ASM policy. Okay, understood? ASM policy. So client request, first like client request matches virtual server with the virtual IP and port, and then request is forwarded to ASM policy, right? And if I assume like there is like either, so I assume either like there are both modules provision, LTM plus ASM or at least ASM, stand alone ASM, right? Because as I mentioned, even if we provision only ASM like as a stand alone, basic functionality of ADC or LTM would be there, right? So I assume like if F5 big IP system has at least ASM module provision and there is ASM policy created. So what happens? Client request first matches virtual server has a policy, and just because of that policy, client request is not like forwarded to pool member for the load balancing, no, right? Rather it would be forwarded to ASM policy. Now what ASM does now, ASM like first checks whether request, HTTP request is legal or not, right? Illegal requests or legal requests, maybe HTTP method, IP reputation, matching with attack signatures, and based on the like configuration what we would have done in like ASM policy, right? Because there are multiple ways to create ASM policy, okay? Comprehensive, fundamental, or rapid deployment. There are too many options there. So depends like what type of configuration we have done in ASM policy. So based on that, let us assume client request is legal, right? HTTP method is allowed, there is no like mismatch. Then what happens? Client request is then forwarded to pool, right? Pool, and pool has members. members means servers. Okay, so now if like request is legal, valid, there is no violation, then client request is forwarded to pool, and if pool has 3 members or 4 members or 5 members, based on like availability configured load balancing method, client request is directed to member or server. Right, in case if like request is illegal, right, there is violation, then what happens? Denied, right, policy violation. And what if there is no ASM policy, only LTM module, right? Then obviously if client request matches virtual server, because that is something required. So if client request matches virtual server, then straight away request is forwarded to the pool, and then pool has members, right? Then request is directed to the pool member. Means if there is ASM, then packet flow is a bit different. Okay, request is not directly forwarded to the pool, forwarded or directed to the pool only if request has been found legal, not against the policy, right? So that's the way like how packet is like forwarded or directed if ASM policy is there, right? So let me clear the screen. So now coming back to this advanced WAF, why like advanced, right? Because how is different than the old traditional ASM or just WAF, no, not advanced WAF or web application firewall. And for the lab demonstration, I'll be using here version 17.x, right, the latest one. 17.x is the latest one, and OS is TMOS, Traffic Management Operating System. So advanced WAF, yes, like advanced WAF has all features of ASM, all features like attack signatures, HTTP method, file type, URL, in bot mitigation, web scraping mitigation, DDoS attack, like all features of ASM. Plus, right, here like we have some very good, in fact, guided configuration. We can use this guided configuration, and I'll show you like what I'm talking about here. And if you are familiar with WASP Top 10 Open Web Application Security Project Top 10, so you must be knowing like WASP is like non-profitable organization, and in every 3 to 4 years what they do, they publish like top 10 web application attacks, right, prominent over internet. And generally like organizations or companies are advised to protect their web applications from top 10 attacks or WASP top 10, right? So definitely your policy or ASM policy should comply to WASP top 10. So I mean like your WAF should protect from top 10 attacks, but again it depends like whatever configuration or policy you have created. So at least in advanced WAF there is a WASP compliance dashboard, right? So we can open that WASP compliance dashboard, and then output will show like whether your web applications like protected from top 10 or not. 2/10 means like only WASP top 2 attacks are protected. So web applications protected only from 2 attacks out of 10. So it's very nice feature, in fact, in advanced WAF. And also the third feature is like apart from guided configuration, second one is WASP top 10. Let me write down here properly. in advanced WAF, right? Advanced WAF. So ASM features or WAF features plus guided configuration option, open web application security project, compliance dashboard is a new feature. Credential protection from credential stuffing attack, right? So credential stuffing is a bit different than the brute force attack. So because brute force attack is something just trying with different combination of username and password, and obviously it's not manually done with the help of some tool, in fact automated fashion. But brute force means like trying with different username and password, whereas credential stuffing is something trying with the leaked username and password, right? So leaked username password, like maybe obtained from the dark website or from anywhere, and then using some like automated tool, just trying with those well known and leaked username and password combination. It's not a hit and trial kind of thing, obviously hit and trial, but with the known username and password. That's what credential stuffing is. So advanced WAF has feature to protect from these kind of things, right? So if someone is trying like this credential stuffing, maybe using Kali Linux and some advanced tool and supplied with thousand of username and password, known and leaked username and password. So yes, we can protect our web application from those attacks, because in advanced WAF we do have credential stuffing option, and different than the brute force attack, right? Because attacker is not trying to trying with the same username or same password, different combination of username password. So even simple policy or lockout policy is something like if there are 3 or maybe 5 or 10 invalid login attempts with the same username within a specific time or period, then account is logged out. But what if username is also being changed and password, so this will not trigger the account logout policy. But here in F5 Big IP Advanced WAF we do have features. Also a very good feature like this advanced bot mitigation, and a lot of ADC or LTM features, right, are there in advanced WAF, load balancing methods, a lot of load balancing methods now, cookie persistence profile, source address persistence profile, a lot of advanced monitors, and even in ASM they were restriction means of 3 servers only in a pool. But now here as there is no limitation, you can have n number of servers in a pool, right? Even though you don't have license of LTM. Data safe is another good feature in advanced WAF, protecting your password or something. Data safe. So new features in advanced WAF, in fact, if I compare with that. So let me quickly show you some of the features of this advanced WAF, and in next session I will critically demonstrate you how we can create different types of security policy, ASM policy, how we can protect web application from WAF top 10 attacks. But first thing first let me show you. So if you navigate to security page, and here we have this guided configuration option I was talking about, right? Guided configuration, and web application protection, API security protection, DAS, bot protection, and mobile protection. And if I click here web application protection and then comprehensive, yes, web application comprehensive. So this guided configuration will allow you to quickly set up big IP advanced web application firewall to protect your application. And on the right hand side, if you can see here, let me adjust the screen so that you can see. So 2021 was top 10 application security risk, and even you can open wasp.org website, right, to know more about all 10 attacks. In fact, WAF top 10, and even if you want to read, then you can read from here also. Just expand this, so you'll find a lot of useful information from here. And see, on this page, like here, configure the solution using the below step will create the required objects. So security policy, bot defense, virtual server, and pool, and all that, right? So it's a new feature here. Guided configuration. This option is really a very nice feature. Bot defense, you can see here, and then data safe is the new feature, right? You'll find here in data safe. In LTM section also, you'll find a lot of new features here in LTM also, even though LTM is not provisioned here. All right. And I was talking about like creating security policy here. So if you create security policy, right, like this way, so on this page, like you find a lot of option here, rapid or maybe a comprehensive, a blank policy. So I will explain in the like next session. And another important point I must mention here, I just forgot to mention, during packet flow, if your virtual server does not have layer 7 profile associated, right? If the virtual server doesn't have layer 7 profile associated, that means we cannot protect applications with WAF policy, right? Let me put it another way. You cannot attach any ASM policy then, because in order to attach ASM policy to the virtual server should have layer 7 profile already associated, HTTP profile, right? And why it is so? Because WAF is what? Web application firewall, application security manager, right? So if F5 big IP system is inspecting data up to layer 4 only, no upper layer inspection, that means no web protection at all. ASM means what? Inspecting data found in layer 7 header, upper layer data, like HTTP method. Where is HTTP method mentioned? Inside HTTP header. Where is the host field? Because if you look at HTTP header, then you will find host field, user agent, HTTP method, right? If like even the codes and injected code and like a lot of like attributes, in fact, and very important, very useful. So what ASM does, ASM like will open layer 7 header like HTTP header and look at different attributes and will match with the policy, right? What should be there and what shouldn't be, and based on that, like restriction is imposed. So if your virtual server doesn't have layer 7 profile attached or associated, means F5 big IP system will inspect data found in layer 3 and layer 4 header only. Means there is no role of ASM policy then. And that's the reason, if you have created ASM policy, you want to apply or associate or protect your virtual server with the ASM policy, and virtual server doesn't have a layer 7 profile, then you cannot apply ASM policy, right? And when we create virtual server in a F5 big IP system, so by default layer 4 profile is attached by default, not layer 7, right? So whenever you create virtual server object, then by default layer 4 profile is attached. So layer 7 need to be attached explicitly by the administrator, right? Because in a F5 big IP system, system is like in a 5 big IP, in fact, load balancer will operate up to layer 4 or layer 7, depends on profile, right? Because in cloud nowadays, like we do have like network load balancer, application load balancer, or application gateway load balancer, traffic manager, front door, too many options in cloud like Azure or AWS, right? So if you want to load balance network traffic, means traffic up to layer 4, then generally we subscribe network load balancer in the cloud. For layer 7, we subscribe layer 7 load balancer or application gateway load balancer. So there are different load balancers in fact in cloud. But what about F5, right? Load balancer is load balancer, right? Same load balancer can operate up to layer 4 if you do not attach layer 7 profile with it. If the same, and not exactly the load balancer even, not exactly the load balancer, it's all about the per virtual server type. If F5 big IP system has total 4 virtual server, and virtual server 1 and 2, they both have only layer 4 profile, server 3 and 4 layer 7. That means for virtual server 1 and virtual server 2, network load balancer. For virtual server 3 and 4, application load balancer, right? So in 5 big IP system, profiles attached are associated per virtual server basis, and even load balancing method is configured per pool basis, right? Not per device basis. You'll have to keep like these concepts in your mind. So if I summarize this section, then I hope you understand, like ASM job is like to protect applications, mainly web applications, purposefully designed to protect web applications. Network firewalls means like protecting networks, right? Even though next generation firewall are like Palo Alto, Checkpoint, or FortiGate, they do operate up to layer 7 of OSI model. They perform deep packet inspection, they do content scanning, they have built-in IPS, IDS, right? A lot of like anti-spyware profiles, a lot of security profiles basically. So if those security profiles have been used, that means next generation firewall is doing a lot of threat prevention even, right? Even 0-day threat protection and prevention, but still next generation firewall cannot like provide protection from WASP top 10 attacks. No, because there are a lot of other like attacks, layer 7 attacks, whereas your F5 big IP, this ASM, even you can see here allowed URLs, disallowed URLs, parameter, right? So we can protect web application from parameter tampering attack, right? Parameter tampering, session hijacking, a browser hijacking. Yes, we can do that protection with this F5 big IPS. Bot defense, you can see here, DAS protection, and even signatures like very well created here, and custom signature, built-in signatures. I'll explain like in other section. So, but you understand like power of and it's not only about the F5 WAF. There are other vendors also, right? Even I do like teach FortiWeb also. So FortiWeb is also like very good, but not as good as F5 big IP ASM, but